welcome to Sinister Studies. Join me each episode as I delve into some truly sinister topics and traumatize my family. I'll be joined by one or more teenager, and from time to time, we'll have special guests. Be forewarned, our stories are seriously sinister, so listener discretion is always advised. Is there any tea that we need to discuss before we get down to business? Piper, I'm going to lock you out of here if you can't contain yourself. Here you go.
It's
you want to sit
something.
at the table?
But if I play my cards right, I might be able to skip one of my exam dates.
Sweet.
Because for environmental, we don't have a fucking exam.
No, I can't imagine that you would.
Because we didn't do anything.
So you don't have a teacher.
We have a teacher, but he's not qualified to teach it. And he has to make, at least 2 other exams, maybe 3. For all his other classes that he's actually qualified to teach and that he's actually been teaching in. So he just says, well, I'll just stretch your final average over. So, maybe I'll subtract a couple points based on how you behave the very few times I actually teach. Which I think is fair.
I guess everybody's on the same page, so it's all good.
And I asked my art teacher, I'm like, do we have any, what are we going to do for the exam? Because, again, we didn't really, learn much in the way of, stuff you could do an exam on. We just did projects the whole time.
Yeah.
So, she just said, we're doing a project. So, if I finish the project before the exam day, hypothetically, I could skip that day because they're on the same day.
And that's a score.
And then I have extra time to mentally prepare for somebody's exam. Not naming names.
I know I told you I was researching a case where no one dies, but this is not that case.
Oh?
No, this is not. In fact, we're just going to start it from smack dab in the middle.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to play something for you.
What are you playing for?
A 911 call. Call. I have a 911 call for you to listen to.
Starting right with the cat's trying to break in.
All right.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 Sound like I'm nothing but gunshots. Hello? Hello?
First of all, why did the 911 operator sound so impatient? Hello? Girl, you just heard somebody get shot and you have the audacity to go, hello? Anyway, I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, so what do you think about that?
Did I just hear somebody die?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing about 911 calls, which a lot of people don't realize, as soon as you hit connect button on your cell phone, it immediately starts recording on the 911 end, even if you haven't talked to somebody yet.
Well, yeah.
Which is why we got the first part of that. And these 911 operators were in the South. So they are familiar with the game we play here in the summer, which is gunshots or fireworks. And she was right. Those were gunshots, multiple gunshots. So, yes, you did hear what you thought you heard on that phone call. And that whole encounter with 911 will come under scrutiny later on. So don't worry. Although I didn't read anything about the operator's tone of voice. Hello, kitten.
She just, that was so rude. She's like, she's like saying something about how she heard gunshots. And then she's like, hello.
Well, she's trying to see if there's somebody on the phone. She needs to clarify if somebody's there or not.
I know, but it's just like the tone of her voice. Like, she sounded irritated, and it's like...
Sounds like she's a bless your heart type of person. So that call came into the Germantown, Tennessee Police Dispatch. Germantown, Tennessee, on July 19th, 2010. Germantown. The dispatcher system was set up to mark a location on a map. However, at that time in 2010, if a call came into their 911 line and it was outside of city limits, it wouldn't show the location of the call on their maps because their maps were solely limited to Germantown.
Oh, well.
They had been able to pull the longitude and latitude coordinates from the ping of the cell phone. Unfortunately, at the time, they weren't able to map them because only one terminal in the department had internet access at the time. And it very clearly wasn't any of the terminals that were in use that day. It was probably a supervisor or something that had internet access. So because you can clearly hear multiple gunshots, Germantown dispatchers did nothing.
They did nothing?
They didn't report it to the neighboring towns. Nothing. They thought about it. They did think about reporting it to the neighboring towns.
Should we report that we probably just heard somebody get murdered over the phone? No. I think
That's outside city limits.
It's not in our jurisdiction.
So on July 22nd, 10 days after this 911 call, Deborah Marion, who is mother to 34-year-old Lorenzen Wright, filed a missing persons report after no one had been able to reach her son for days. His best friend, with whom he had a system to contact in case of an emergency, had attempted to use their SOS code for an urgent and immediate call, which Lorenzen had never before ignored. He got no response after multiple attempts. On July 28th, with assistance from cadaver dogs and using Lorenzen's cell phone data to triangulate the area, what was left of NBA star Lorenzen Wright was found in the woods near a golf course in Memphis, Tennessee. I say what is left of Lorenzen because we're talking about a swampy area in the South during the height of summer. Decomposition
so that shit was just decay.
Yeah. Decomp and animal activity had rendered him to little more than a skeleton. Medical examiners would eventually rule his death a homicide after being shot once in the arm, twice in the chest, and twice in the head. He had essentially been assassinated. His family was distraught. His ex-wife, Shara, had been the last to see him. He had been in town from Atlanta and was at her house to visit with his 6 children. She had told police that he had left late that night and told her that he had a plan to turn something for a large profit. She was very vague and just said he was turning something for a large profit, insinuating that their financial situation had compelled him into the drug trade. Lorenzen's mother told police that there was absolutely no chance in hell that Lorenzen would be involved in that kind of business no matter what his financial status was.
If you were like really, really poor, would you deal drugs?
I mean, if it meant feeding my children versus not feeding my children, probably. Thankfully, I've never had to make that decision. Lorenzen met Shara, who was 5 years older than him, while he was in high school being coached by her father. And her father knew talent when he saw it. He recruited Lorenzen to play for him in Memphis. And since age ain't nothing but a number, the two quickly became a couple.
Wait, how old?
He was 17 years old.
And how old was she?
22. Lorenzen was drafted to the NBA in 1996 to the LA Clippers, and he would eventually go on to play for the Atlanta Hawks, his hometown Memphis Grizzlies, the Sacramento Kings, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Lorenzen and Shara married in 1998, and by many accounts, their relationship was a tumultuous one. Lorenzen was on the road for most of the year. I know this is not a basketball house. I think the Celtics are still in the playoffs. That's how invested I am in basketball. Baseball, I will. Hockey, I'm there.
Yeah, at this point, my main concern is with hockey. My main concern's always with hockey. I don't really care about baseball if I'm at a game. I kind of sort of care about baseball.
So, for context, basketball starts in October.
Damn.
And they are playing for championship now.
Oh, yeah, so
it's a long season. He quite literally was on the road for more than half the year. And his frequent trips left Shara home alone with the children. The couple sadly lost a baby girl to SIDS, which added to their list of stressors. There were accusations of cheating from both sides, and Shara said that after finding her with another man, Lorenzen kicked the door open and pointed a gun at her.
Oh, okay.
There was a struggle, and Shara was left with a gash on her hand, although charges were never brought against Lorenzen. After Lorenzen retired from the NBA, it wasn't long before their finances were in dire straits. He had been making millions of dollars a year playing basketball, but he loved high-end cars, and Shara loved spending money on anything she could.
So they lost all the money?
Pretty much.
Oh, get in there. Go.
It was reported that she would redecorate the entire house, top to bottom, multiple times a year. Everything. Walls, furniture, everything.
She's just like, well, maybe we'll get a new couch. Maybe we'll switch up the.
She enjoyed her jewelry.
And while we're at it, let's redo the carpets. Let's put new wallpaper up.
It has to match and be seasonally appropriate.
Yeah. These girls in my class were genuinely trying to convince Mr. Carey to bring us to TJ Maxx, and he was like, "How would I even do that?"
That's a pretty fucking random thing to ask your Spanish teacher.
This girl was like, "I want to go to TJ Maxx," and she was like, "Mr. Carey, can we go to TJ Maxx?" And he's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, at least we would only tell after tomorrow because I get paid tomorrow." And then this girl was like, "Well, if you spend the money now and then you get paid tomorrow, you're basically just getting the money back, so you didn't spend any money."
Oh my God.
Girl math. He was like, I have a car payment. I have to pay rent. I can't be spending money like that.
Yeah. Lorenzen and Shara divorced 5 months prior to Lorenzen disappearing. And during that time, Lorenzen had lost some of his cars. They had been repossessed.
How many did he have?
Many. And
Did he just have like a collection?
he really, really liked cars. He was also liquidating many of his physical assets, like houses, so he could support his large family. But part of the divorce settlement was that the children would be the beneficiary of Lorenzen's estate and his $1 million life insurance policy in the event of his death. The estate would be managed by Shara until the children came of age. Lorenzen's funeral was held at the FedEx Center, where he had played with the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies. I'm well past the time where my speaking becomes a problem. And Memphis turned out for Lorenzen's funeral. The entire city was in mourning. They packed the arena to pay their respects to their hometown hero. Lorenzen's ex-wife and children were also in attendance, but it was pretty much a standing room only crowd. Friends mourned a man who had been unfailingly loyal to them, who would go above and beyond to help anyone out. That is a common thread that you will hear about him, is that he was always willing to help a friend.
This is going to be important.
No, I'm just saying that he's genuinely a good guy. His family mourned the son who was taken well before his time, and the father that would never get to see his children grow up. After Lorenzen was put to rest, his mother and Shara sued the Department of Germantown for the mishandling of surprise, for the mishandling of Lorenzen's last pleas for help. Deborah and the city of Memphis as a whole were on the police about finding her son's killer. She repeatedly disputed Shara's claims that he was involved in something nefarious. In fact, she kept telling police that she found her daughter-in-law more than suspect. She knew about the money troubles and the life insurance policy. Now that Shara was in full control of Lorenzen's estate, she was all but throwing money around. And Deborah and the police took notice of this. But the case went dormant because they didn't have any evidence, and despite the fact that there was a reward for information on the case. There were very, very few leads, so life went on in Memphis. Deborah would do everything she could to keep the spotlight on Lorenzen's case. She would have memorial services. She would be constantly talking to the police. She would talk to reporters. She wanted her son's murder solved.
Yeah. I don't want to make you think about this, but if one of us got murdered, you'd be doing literally anything you could. Especially if it was handled so poorly. It's like, great, now you know that the police, like, that the systems in place to solve this are not going to solve it. And it's like, if nobody else is going to do it, then it's like...
The cat and the dog are on two different sides of the glass door, and they are really unhappy about that.
But it's like, if the police already mishandled it and didn't even consider trying to solve it or get it solved, then it's like, who else is going to do it?
Yeah, she's making sure that they continue to do their jobs and follow up on this. Shara would go on to self-publish a fictional romance story about a woman and her pro-athlete husband.
Oh, okay.
It was basically the life and times of Lorenzen and Shara with the names changed.
That's very respectful.
She would eventually tell people that it was their story with only a few embellishments. And obviously, this raised a lot of eyebrows.
What was the contents of the book?
You know what? I didn't read it. It didn't look worth look like worth a read.
Oh, yeah, but like, do we have any?
Okay, let's
Look at the reviews. Let's go on Goodreads. See what the people are saying.
Right. Book. Okay, so the name of the book is Mr. Tell Me Anything.
That's goofy. It's goofy as fuck. That's a dumb name.
I'm on Goodreads right now.
Are the masses flaming her?
So on Goodreads, we are rocking in at an average 3.1 star. It's just got like a tiny bit of one of the star pieces. I've never seen a review do that.
It's just like the corner.
Okay, we're going to go with 3. 3.12 stars.
1-2.
3.12. That's the official count.
Okay.
This review by Christine says, "Girl, please, don't waste your time. Not worth it."
Oh, please.
Charlotte says, "I'm so glad that I didn't spend my money on this book and checked it out of the library, and that is all I have to say." This one says, "This book has the potential to be a good read with some editing. It took me a long time to finish reading because the story was just not flowing right. I hope with book 2 the ending is better."
With book 2?
There was no book 2. Spoiler.
Was there supposed to be one?
Spoiler alert, no book 2.
Was there supposed to be a book 2?
Haven't the slightest idea, but she was trying to cash in
On
being Lorenzen Wright's widow, even though that she was an ex.
So she was trying to profit off of the murder?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. She didn't really do any interviews.
Oh my god, you said that.
For 5 years. For a solid 5 years, she tried to avoid making statements or anything like that.
And then all of a sudden.
And then in 2015, Shara met with journalist Kelvin Cowens, who had been trying to score an interview with her. He wanted to get her side of the story. They met at a coffee shop, and soon their short interview turned into an afternoon, which turned into a relationship.
Oh, that's not.
And fun fact about Kelvin, he eventually would write a book about Shara called The Whispering Woods of Shara Wright by 6'4". That's, yeah. This is the cover of the book. That's the picture he chose of Shara to put on the cover of a book.
Can I be so real? That whole picture.
First of all, she's a grown-ass fucking woman sitting in a tree with a dress on.
Also,
swatting.
The editing of the picture is ugly.
Like, he definitely.
The composition of the picture is bad. It's really not a good picture, and the font. It's that like goofy font.
It's like a font you would see on like an old-timey show, like Wild West type show.
Like, that's just ridiculous.
I mean, she's a pretty woman. I'm sure he had much more flattering photos than that. I would almost guarantee it, because they were together for a while.
I sure hope so.
But that's what he chose.
Anime title ass font.
Shara and the children would eventually move with Kelvin to Houston. He said that they would discuss Lorenzen frequently, that the subject was usually brought up by Shara. He was remembered at all family events, at all holidays. And Kelvin says that he would Kelvin says he would frequently find her in their closet praying well until the night. At some point between divorce and this point, Shara had become an ordained minister. I don't know. There were rumors that she was having an affair with her mentor / preacher. It's a whole big thing.
Oh, interesting.
So Kelvin thought that Shara praying in the closet meant that she was still grieving the loss of Lorenzen. That she was still processing the loss of Lorenzen. The two parted ways after a few years, largely in part because of Shara's out-of-control spending. He said they still spoke from time to time, and then in 2017, when they reported that they had found the murder weapon used in the assassination of Lorenzen Wright, Kelvin, who was 3 hours ahead of Shara, so he was in the Tennessee area at the time, she was on the West Coast, called her to tell her that they had found the murder weapon. She did not seem thrilled about the prospect. You would think that,
I mean,
after years of nothing, getting the news that they finally found something would make somebody happy.
or at least just be like, you think that, at least that would be information you'd want to know.
Yeah, because she sued people about this. So I know you're probably asking yourself, how did they find this murder weapon? It was actually pretty easy. Shara's cousin, Jimmy Martin, was in prison on a 20-year sentence for the murder of his girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
In a Hail Mary attempt for leniency, Jimmy contacted the authorities and told them that he had information on the murder of Lorenzen Wright. And not only did he tell them which lake to find the gun in, he told them an amazing story. Shara had met with Jimmy and another man, Billy Ray Turner, who may or may not have been her gardener and with whom she most certainly had been having some sort of sexual relationship with. He said that she had laid it all out for them, that she wanted Lorenzen dead.
Oh.
Jimmy and Billy actually made an attempt on Lorenzen's life one time before this. They had actually gone out to Atlanta, broken into Lorenzen's apartment with the intention of murdering him. But when they looked around, Lorenzen wasn't there and one of his friends was sleeping on his couch. So the two hightailed it out of there and went back to Tennessee.
Yeah.
They had to come up with plan B. So that brings us to plan B. Shara knew that Lorenzen was in town, so she started sending him dirty text messages in an attempt to lure him to her house. And it worked. For lack of a better way to say it, he's a man. And if the offer is there, he's more than likely going to take it. So with that in mind, Lorenzen didn't think anything of it when Shara suggested their rendezvous be in their own version of Lover's Lane. This would not be the first time that they got together after their divorce.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
This place was one that they'd been to many times. And when Lorenzen got there, shit went down pretty much immediately. Lorenzen had tried to outrun the bullets. He was basically hurdling fences to try to get away from them. He took off in an attempt to escape, and Jimmy says that Shara and Billy both shot Lorenzen with two separate guns, but Shara had dropped her gun, so the two had to go back to the scene of the shooting.
Two separate guns is so excessive.
Yeah. So they went back to where they shots were fired. They had to pick up the shell casings and make sure that there was no other evidence in the area. This is the middle of the night. She then concocted the whole story about Lorenzen leaving in the middle of the night to imply that the people he was supposedly meeting with were responsible for his disappearance and ultimately his murder. This would also assassinate his character as well. Shara was arrested and went to trial in 2019. But at the last minute, her attorneys orchestrated a plea deal. She pled guilty to facilitation to commit first-degree murder, and she received 30 years with credit for the 2 that she'd already spent in prison. She maintains that she was not involved in the actual shooting itself, despite what her cousin told police, and that the cell phone data would later put her at the scene when they looked into it.
The cell phone data.
Yes, data. It's late. I don't know what to say. It's way past my bedtime.
It's 9:30. That's like way too much for her.
I'm also running on very little sleep for the last 3 or 4 days. Billy Ray Turner was convicted in 2022 of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempted first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life plus 41 years. Since being convicted, he has gone on to give interviews with news organizations. He maintains his innocence in the entire matter and insists that Jimmy was Cher's accomplice. Not only did he have the criminal connections to help facilitate this, but he also had a violent past. And he knew exactly which lake in Mississippi the gun had been dumped. I'm not sure if you were aware, but there are a lot of lakes and ponds and things of that nature in that area. So to his point, how in the hell would he know exactly which one the gun was in unless he did the dumping himself?
Yeah.
What are you doing? It is a valid point. It is a very valid point.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Oh
There's a pie chart. I see a pie chart.
Looking at statistics.
Well, that sounds delightful. In addition to his very valid point, he told reporters that Shara had told him herself about what went down the night of the murder, saying that she had told him he was jumping over things like a deer. He is currently appealing his case. Martin has never been charged with anything connected to Lorenzen's case.
Never been? Are you kidding me?
He still remains in prison on his prior sentence.
Bro is suspicious as fuck. Like, what?
Yeah, they never. He didn't have a deal in place for immunity. They never charged him with anything as of yet.
It's actually ridiculous. Did they look into it at all?
I don't know.
Or very much?
Obviously not very much if he still hasn't been charged in any way, shape, or form.
Like, in either way, that's like...
At the very least, he was an accomplice.
Yeah.
At the very least.
Yeah.
Shara requested early release in 2022, saying that she was sorry.
That she was sorry?
She was sorry.
She's like, oh, please let me out. Please let me out. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Please.
Request
please.
denied. Denied. She will actually be eligible for parole in 3 years.
Okay. Well, it's just 3 more years that she's...
When Shara was arrested for the crime, Deborah lit off fireworks in the cemetery because Lorenzen loved fireworks. She's going to continue in her crusade against her child's murderer. And as long as she's alive, she's going to show up to every single one of Shara's parole hearings.
As she should.
Because Shara only got 30 years, and Deborah intends to make sure she serves her entire sentence.
Real shit.
That is the definition of fuck around and find out.
I just can't imagine, like... Like, just...
I can't imagine a lot of this.
I
Most
know.
of it. But killing my ex for money, I mean, she was going to get it eventually. Just not for a while because he was only 34 years old.
Yeah.
She just snuffed his ass right out with no regards
And
to
the
her
money was
children.
supposed to go to the kids. It's like, girl, that ain't even for you.
And she stole their father from them.
Like, why would you do that to your own children? Not only take their father from them and give them that trauma at such a young age, but also for the money that's supposed to go to them. Like, you do all that, and then on top of that, you take what was rightfully theirs, what he was supposed to leave to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you did all of it because you wanted that money.
Yeah.
Like, girl, get a job.
She wrote a book. Even Piper thinks that was absurd.
She just let out the biggest sigh known to man. The grumble that just left this dog's mouth.
But truly, in almost every article you read, they do mention the alleged physical altercation when he came home and found her in bed with another man, apparently in their house.
How is that really a big deal? Because it's not like, even if he did walk in with a gun, he didn't shoot anybody. He didn't shoot.
I mean, it's scary as hell to have a gun pointed at you.
I know. But, first of all, you're not in your right mind when you see that.
No.
And she literally killed him. So that is negligible.
Yeah.
In comparison.
She got a scratch on her hand and he died. But everybody, like almost all reports, I have listened to multiple.
And were there like any other reports of like any sort of domestic violence?
Just that they fought a lot. And it was mostly about money and both of them sleeping around. So, I mean, it must not have been a shock for Lorenzen to walk in and see another man in his bed. Although that's extremely disrespectful.
I mean, in his bed, but also like, if both of them were doing it, could they even really get mad at each other at that point?
That is a valid point. I totally agree with that point.
But it's like, I don't know. Clearly, that wasn't her motivation for killing him, and it wasn't out of self-defense, considering he had long been out of the picture.
No, she lured him to his death.
So,
everybody, like, when people ask about his character outside of Shara, everybody said that he would volunteer for the community. He would give the shirt off his back to help his friends and even strangers. That he was just an all-around good guy.
It's like, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but she didn't report any incidences of domestic violence.
Well, they were called that time.
That one time.
Yeah, but she never pressed charges.
She never pressed charges, so she clearly didn't feel very threatened. Because at that point, she had a distance from him to where, you know, when you're in the situation, you can find it hard to speak out. But at that point, they had like a distance between them, and they were already divorced. So if she was going to press charges, or if she was going to bring something forward, she would have been safe to do so. So clearly, it wasn't out of any sort of self-defense or like feeling of being threatened, because again, she was the one luring him in.
Yeah.
I know, Piper.
Piper wants to go to bed too. Well, on that note, Piper would like to go to bed, everybody.
I would like to go to bed too. But it's just like, I just can't imagine killing anybody for any reason.
Never mind $1 million. $1 million is not a lot of money these days. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just not.
It'll get you somewhere, but it's not going to get you.
It's not going to get you far.
It's money, but it's not anything crazy and substantial. Just I can't imagine killing anybody and then just being fine with that and then being able to live with myself after that. And it's how do you look at your children knowing you killed their father? How do you face that? How do you see how it's affecting them and just go on with your life? And then when you're faced with the consequences of your actions, you're just oh, but I'm sorry. What? It's actually just ridiculous. Piper. Okay, we all want to go to bed. We're EP, we're tired. Piper's eyes are bugging out of her head right now. She's just she looks so... Yeah, so...
Do you have something to say before we say goodnight to everybody? Okay. Well, we'll say goodnight too. And on that note, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, sinister7pod@gmail.com. Follow us. Rate us.
Yeah.
All right, you want to go to bed?
Piper says audio.